Hello, I'm Robert, and you're welcome here in my biz little shop. On today's episode of What's in My Workbench, I thought I'd have you follow along today. I've got an interesting project. It really involves a small amount of leather, something that you can really dress up and make it extra special for the person that gets it on the other end. So, instead of talking about it here, let's get over to the workbench and we'll get started on it. I appreciate you taking time to be with me in the shop today. So I'm working on this dog collar here, and I finished the dog collar, and I got looking at it, and I'm like, that's really kind of boring. Just a black dog collar with some matte nickel hardware on it. I mean, it's a nice looking dog collar for sure, but let's see if we can take this and make it extra special. So I guess we need to take this hardware back off of here. So I thought I would put a Gunslinger pattern on here. Now, I've asked a couple times for Gunslinger patterns in a smaller strap, and I've had people say, well, it's really difficult to put that pattern on such a narrow strap. Well, here's a point to prove that. Here's a set of templates that I purchased. So for a closer look, this is the template set that comes. The one of the things I don't like about this template set is it can be easy to get this shifted one way or the other because you put it on this side and there's a line here that helps, but that line is 1/16 of an inch wide. And then if you bring it over here, then if you get it off just a little bit, it really shows. So I have purchased some that it's all in one strap. The one thing that this pattern set does, it gives you the ability to adjust a little bit this way if you need to. But you have to be careful because if you move it too far, what ends up happening if you make this oval part bigger and the diamond smaller, and after a while it looks out of shape. Here's an example here. Let me show you. So here's the Gunslinger pattern, and if it's correct, these rounded parts of the oval should line up with the tips of the Gunslinger pattern. In this particular one, it's got an oval, a diamond, an oval, and a diamond. And I've never lined it up that way. I always have it to where there's a diamond between each oval. I think that's a better look. I have used the pattern and just made ovals, which is kind of a cool look. So what I need to do though is this is a 1-inch strip, and with 1 1/4 inch being the smallest one there, and in my opinion it doesn't really work on 1 1/4 inch very well. But what I did was I've got photocopies on there, and then we put it on cardstock and made it smaller. So now I have a smaller version of the 1 1/4 inch, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that. So hopefully that helps explain what it is, because just looking at that it may be difficult to understand it. The next thing I need to do is to lay out how the pattern is going to fit on this strap. I don't have a whole lot of space between the screw hole here for the Chicago screw and the first hole here for the adjustment. Now, probably not going to be using that first hole, so if I need to utilize that first hole, I can. What I would do is I would potentially put my first spot there. Let's see how the layout goes though. Now, as you saw in that pattern, the diamond continues out past this point here. Here's this point here is that. So this needs to continue out past there. And an imaginary line, this one here, if it's on here, that will continue out to about here and then go back the other direction. So with that in mind, let's see how it fits if I want to get it on here. Let's put a little dimple here, and then we can shift it to this next one. I can come this direction a little bit. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, that's going to work. Now, one of my most used tools that was not designed for Leathercraft is this little speed square here. I'm going to transfer that dot to here, so I'm square. And now I can line this up going back the other direction. Make sure it all fits okay. Now that I have my spots identified, I'm going to go ahead and scribe this onto this leather here. All right, let's get my stitching chisels and we'll get this pattern put in here. Probably hard to see the pattern on the black. I'm using my 4mm set here. And I'll look and see if this fits, how this fits best. think, straight in the middle, at least on these end ones. When you're doing this, depending on the size, you have to really look at see how these stitches line up, because you want them to be as equal as possible on that pattern. Depending on the size of the diamond, there are times when I may use the single hole and place them manually on there so that I can control the spacing a little bit more. Now, along these ovals, what I'll do is I'll just lay this out first, kind of see how they look. It's actually pretty good. So if I push this first one just a hair from that beginning spot, comes out pretty even. I like to work on the away side first, and then I'll flip the belt around and work on the other side. That one seems like I got maybe a little bit less space there, so I'll use the single and just split the difference there. Not long ago, I was talking to a person that makes these templates, and I asked them about making a different size Gunslinger pattern. And I don't know, it seems easy to me. I think a lot of people think of the Gunslinger pattern only on maybe belts. And I've used it for handles on overnight bags. I've used it on straps on purses. And it would really be nice to have a smaller size, kind of like I've had to make here. I would assume that this is all done on computers. In other words, it's designed, and then a computer controlled the equipment that cut this out. It seemed like it'd be pretty easy to type 80% of a size or 82% and be able to make it. But the person said they weren't developing any new patterns for that. So anyway, it would be interesting, because I would really like to have a set that got even smaller than this. I would use, I've done it before, and instead of using a stitching chisel, I've done just a simple awl to pin prick it. Here's an example of a pattern. Got my maul in the way of my light there. But I created this design, and then I just came through and put a little prick on each one of those, and then came back with my awl, kind of like this, but it's a little bit smaller, and used that to make each one of those holes to stitch that, and it made really a unique design. This was on a belt. Okay, we've got our holes here. Let's get set up in my stitching pony and we'll get this sewn. We're going to use a light gray thread on here. This is what I'm going to use, this Tiger Ritza 0.08 light gray. And I'd like to do it in one run here to make sure that I only have to deal with one area where I end my stitching. So I'll pull out a generous amount of thread. I'll get this strung up on some needles and I'll be over at the stitching pony here briefly. So I'm going to start here near the buckle end. Let's see here. I'm just going to do a simple saddle stitch here. On my belts, when I do the Gunslinger pattern, I typically will sew that pattern only in the top layer, and then when I line it, I cover up those stitches on the back. And it does a couple things. One is it allows for what I think is a cleaner looking back of a belt, and I do think that's important. The other thing it does is I can start and stop thread and just tie a simple knot on the back side, and you don't see that either. You don't see any double back or anything. But since this one here is obviously already the thickness we're going to be, I will just do a back stitch to finish off my stitch line. So now, as you think about some of the templates that you have in your array, if you want to make them smaller, I think, using a copier, reducing the size of it, transferring that copier paper to a poster board, or I mean, if you have a way of cutting out plastic, if you want to put it on plastic, you could do that as well. But that may be a good solution to, fixing that issue of it's really not quite the size of project that you're looking for. There might be times when you have to adjust a little bit about, what you're doing, maybe the weight of leather and such, if you go changing the template size, but it's one solution. here you go. So I'm embarrassed. I finished the stitching, came over here, and I created the 4 holes for the spots or rivets for the fake turquoise spots. And then I looked up and the camera wasn't recording. Not sure if I'm sure it's probably operator error. So the next thing I need to do now is to go ahead and remount the hardware. This is a matte nickel finish hardware that I purchased through Buckleguy. And you've probably seen me say it before, but I use a little bit of clear fingernail polish. It can be a challenge to come undone, but we don't want a pet's collar to come undone, because if it comes undone, next thing you know, they're chewing on it. And there's not a lot of places to put my maker's mark, but there it is there. This is a stamp I had made by Steel Stamps Inc. Tim Purdy's the owner. Does a great job. I need to be talking to him. I'm going to see him in a little over a month at the Pendleton Leather Show, and I may talk to him about another stamp. I think it really turned out nice. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Let's turn the camera around and we'll wrap up here. Well, here you go. I think it turned out really pretty nice. I think it's actually stunning. The light gray thread with the fake turquoise spots and the matte nickel hardware, I think really go nicely together. The pet that this is for, the owner has the matching belt. Yep. The Gunslinger with the gray thread and the turquoise spots. So there'll be a match set. I appreciate you taking time to be with me in the shop today. Please like, share, and subscribe. But more importantly, I hope you have a great day.